Streaming now, this is the Wood TV Live Desk.
And good afternoon, everyone. Phil Pinarski here with the Wood TV Live Desk. Hope you're all having a great start to your Wednesday. As we do every Wednesday, News 8 digital reporter Matt Jarowski joins us on the Live Desk to discuss his story from Sunday. Hey, Matt, how are you doing?
Doing well, Phil.
Yeah, no, definitely glad to have you back here as always. A really interesting story this week. A lot of different elements, a multifaceted story. One this past weekend on Sunday regarding a new study out of Australia that, of course, has ties to Michigan due to PFAS. Matt, for everyone who maybe hasn't gotten a chance to checking that story out, could you give us a brief synopsis on what that story really entails?
Sure. So, I mean, obviously here in West Michigan, PFAS, and really in so many other communities across the country is what we're finding out now. PFAS contamination is a growing problem, something that we've been dealing with for a long time now, and really now just learning the ramifications of all of that. So this study out of Australia focused on firefighters. Our firefighters, we know, have higher PFAS exposure rates because of the type of work that they do, between being exposed to chemicals and even up to like the gear that they wear. We know that they tend to have much higher levels of PFAS in their body than even the normal population, which it's estimated that virtually everyone, at least in the United States and in most parts of the world, has some level of detectable PFAS contamination in their body. And so this study out of Australia tried to look at ways to help these firefighters. And they tested regular blood donations and plasma donations because that's where the PFAS builds up in a person's body. And they found that that is an effective way to help keep suppressing that PFAS buildup in that person's body.
Right. And the study, you know, obviously you went into great depth in that story. I do want to remind everybody watching that if you haven't gotten the chance to check out Matt's story, we do have it linked down below. If you're watching us on Facebook, it's in the comment section and in the description box. There you can continue listening to this conversation with Matt and myself while also checking out that story. Matt, again, the story kind of also touched on the whole dilemma with the blood donations, whether or not the study on asking firefighters or recommending that they donate their blood more often to help lower the amount of PFAS, but then also that contamination in the blood supply. What are sort of some of the issues associated with that study result?
Yeah, that was really, when I learned about the study and kind of read through it, that was the big question that popped out to me is, so obviously this is beneficial for our firefighters to remove that material from their bodies, but that isn't necessarily something we want in the blood supply or the plasma supply. So that is really the focus of my story. That's what we looked into. We found that, yes, this can become a problem. I talked to, his name is Justin Colosino. He's actually a breast cancer researcher for the University of Michigan. But in dealing with this research, he deals a lot with PFAS and contaminants in the body, how they can lead to cancers and how they're spread. And we found that, yes, given the complete expansion of PFAS, especially in the United States, that it's almost a guarantee that there's some level of PFAS in our blood supply, and how that can be dangerous to the people who need blood transfusions or plasma transfusions.
And I think that interview with the professor was really interesting, just kind of hearing from their own perspective on what this study really entails. And I do kind of want to touch on that, you know, Matt, with a story like this where there's a lot of different elements and a lot of different perspectives coming out of it. Obviously, there is stuff that gets put on the cutting room floor. Is there anything in that story that maybe you'd like to share now that maybe didn't make it into that final product that was published on Sunday?
Yeah, well, so Dr. Colosino, he kind of walked me through the process of how this works. So a lot of chemicals, contaminants in your body tend to be stored in fat. PFAS is a little different. It tends to stick in our blood. And what happens is those, I didn't dive into this in the article because it really gets into the weeds, but basically the same, PFAS is this unique chemical compound that is good at, it's a water repellent, it's an oil repellent, it has really tight carbon bonds, and those characteristics are what make it such an effective tool as far as a waterproof agent, or things we used on nonstick pans and all sorts of household goods the last 60, 70 years. But those same characteristics apply in our blood. So those PFAS chemicals bind to the plasma proteins in our blood. And it kind of hijacks this system that our bodies have naturally. So when he compared it to when we take drugs or medicine, a lot of times those drugs will get into our bloodstream, and it's the plasmas that take that medicine or those chemicals where they need to go. PFAS builds up on those proteins as well and kind of slows down that process. So that's why it makes sense as far as if we are taking blood and it's almost essentially acting as a filter because we're removing those contaminants. Now, the doctor's two big points is one, if we're going to encourage firefighters to do this and regularly donate blood and plasma, we need to be mindful of where we're putting those donations. If we're putting them into the regular blood supply, then we really should be doing two things. This is according to him. One, we should be testing these products to see the levels of PFAS in them, because depending on who donates, there could be some significant contamination there. And two, we also need to be really making sure that even if there are some donations that have low levels of PFAS, because we've all been exposed to it, we need to make sure that those aren't going to certain individuals. He brought up a lot of time infants, newborns that are dealing with health difficulties will need blood transfusions. And even if they get a transfusion that has a modest level of PFAS contamination, that can cause serious health problems. Not to mention just the fact that we're incorporating those chemicals through these donations and transfusions into people that normally when you're receiving a blood transfusion, it's because you're dealing with some sort of immunocompromised state, or you're in a weakened state where your body may not be able to handle those contaminants as well. So it's definitely something that we really need to address as far as the infrastructure of how we handle blood donations and blood transfusions.
Right, and I think that was kind of the main sort of point made in that article, was just sort of the dilemma that was found in this study, and just kind of what that recommendation from the study kind of could lead to. And other people seem to be feeling that same sentiment, as that same study is now being done out of Arizona. Can you touch on a little bit about what's happening next with that study, Matt?
Yeah, it's more of a proof of concept step. The University of Arizona and Arizona State University are working together essentially to recreate the study done out of Australia, to see if they're seeing the same kind of numbers, the same kind of data points, to kind of confirm whether this could be an effective way to help firefighters or people with high levels of PFAS in their system. So it's trying to confirm that this is a positive step we can take, while also, kind of shining a light on the potential negative impacts of if we take this step and make that a standard procedure.
All right, fantastic stuff, Matt. And I do want to recommend everybody watching that if you have not gotten the chance to check out Matt's story, once again, you can find the entire story that was posted on Sunday over on our website, woodtv.com. You can also check out all of Matt's other Sunday pieces, as well as all of the great local coverage that you can expect to find over on woodtv.com. Matt, as always, thank you so much for coming on the live desk today, and we will see you next Wednesday.
Yep, no problem. Talk to you later, Phil.
And I want to thank everybody else for tuning in to this latest edition of the Wood TV Live Desk. I'm Phil Pinarski, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.